We're live. The Faithful Fanatic has a very special guest joining us today. Bonta Hill, 95.7 The Game's co-host of The Morning Roast, a new show that started about the last month with Joe Shasky, Kate Scott. Bonta, first and foremost, congratulations on the new gig. I know many Bay Area residents like myself love that morning show, having your energy at 6 a.m. in the morning. Congratulations on that, and thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been a long time coming, man. Like what you guys are doing with this podcast. Love the way you guys represent the Niners and waking up so early in the morning, trying to set the tone for the Bay Area, man. It's a treat. It's flattering. You know what I'm saying? Doing it with Shasky, who's a diehard Niner fan. Me kind of going through the journalism route and doing that. So, man, I'm pumped up, man. A lot of good things happening. And, I know things are bleak with the 49ers, but you know what? This is an exciting time, man. They got some talent. And we'll see what Shanahan and Lynch does with this team moving forward, including 2020, which, crazier things have happened. They beat the Saints and they're 5-5, and looks like it's going to be 8 teams in the playoffs. Who knows? I mean, hey, look, they're not a Super Bowl team, right? But you know what? Compete. That's all I want from the Niners moving forward. Just compete at a high level, and let's see what happens there.
Absolutely. And the playoffs are not completely out of the question. There was the rumors coming out today that if any game, or it's not even a rumor, it's basically confirmed that if any games get canceled this season, there's a strong possibility they shift from a 17 playoff to an 18 playoff. And the 49ers are in that conversation. I see them battling out with the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Bears for one of those final playoff spots. But not all Niner fans agree on that. I sent out a poll yesterday asking, would fans rather see the 49ers end up with a better draft pick or fight to get into the playoff spot? The majority, it was tight. It was about 48% to 52%, but the majority want the 49ers to get that higher draft pick. What should they do, Bonta? Where do you see this team going? What would benefit them the most?
Well, you got to play hard because this is about culture. This is about building a culture and building winning ways. I look back to 2017, right? They traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. They were 1-9. There was no hope. People stopped going to the games. Levi Stadium was empty. People were trying to sell their season tickets. But what happens? You win 5 straight games. And think about what it did going into 2018. And I know 2018 kind of fell on his face, right? After Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt week 3 in 2018 against the Kansas City Chiefs. But that offseason, the buzz surrounding the team, Niner fans were hyped. The team was hyped. And you start to build those winning ways where, yes, you're losing by 5. They had the stretch where in 2017 where they lost 5 straight games by 3 points or less. But it built something within the team saying, you know what, we're going to fight. We're going to scratch. We're going to claw. We're not going to just go out here and tank for draft picks. And I don't think they did that in 2018. I know a lot of people got mad when they won that Seahawks game late in the year against Russell Wilson. But it was important to send a message to the NFC West, and specifically to the Seahawks, who basically ended the Harbaugh reign. They ended your dynasty or whatever you had built with Jim Harbaugh, Frank Gore, Patrick Willis. And it was important to send a message to Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll saying, you know what? We're not going to be punks. We're not going to lay down. We're building something here in San Francisco. And it means something to the young players. What does it say to Brandon Ayuk? They'd be like, shut it down. We're going to go out here. We're going to roll over. And we're going to lose games. What does that do for Javon Kinlaw? What does that do to Fred Warner Jr.? What does that do to the youngsters on this football team? So I've never been about team taking because, one, it doesn't guarantee you anything but a top pick.
Exactly.
Blow that pick. You can blow that pick like you did in 2017 when you drafted Solomon Thomas. Doesn't mean the Bengals had top 10 picks for years in the 90s and they blew all those picks, whether it was Akili Smith, Klingler, Kajana Carter, who blew his knee before he even got the camp. I mean, this stuff happens all the time. So you want to compete at a high level because guess what? If you don't compete, Richard Sherman doesn't come to the 49ers after 2017. He doesn't look from afar and say, you know what? They're building something down there in the Bay Area. Look at the way they compete. Look at the way they fight. I like what they're doing down there. Maybe I could be the missing piece to that organization. You don't want to quit and give up because of a draft pick that may not pan out to be anything. The whole tanking thing, look, I get it. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent in this draft. But if you know what you're doing as a draft evaluator, if you know what you're doing in your scouting department, you won't have to tank. You can move up in that draft. You can make some moves and get the player that you want. So, look, they're 4 or 5 right now. All right? They're 4 or 5 right now. You got the Saints. You got the Cardinals. You got the Cowboys. You got the Bills on Monday Night Football. Go play hard. Go try to get a win. And you know what it do? if you do make the playoffs this year, for the Fred Warners, for the Devo Samuels, for the Brandon Ayuk's, and for Shanahan, if you could get into the playoffs, what it does for Shanahan and his confidence moving forward, it would do wonders for this football team. You may not win a Super Bowl, but if you could just get your name into the tournament and play hard and just taste what the playoffs feel like for the second straight year, all of a sudden people were not saying, hey, 2019 was a fluke. You know, that was a fluky Super Bowl run. Nah, they're saying, you know what? San Francisco's building something. They're building not only a culture, but they have an infrastructure to where they moving forward. We're going to have to compete with this team year in and year out. So the whole tanking thing, people got it all wrong. What are you going to tank for? You're going to tank for Trevor? What does that mean? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Exactly. You're going to tank for all these guys? I can't stand the tankers. It grinds my gears, Marco. It really does.
Likewise, like I would never tank because as a player, first of all, your house on the line every damn play. Your career's on the line every play. You put up one bad play and you're an undrafted free agent, your career's over. So as a player, as a player, you want your coaches to come out and you want them to be competing in the film room. You want them to like, hey, we're gonna come out, we're gonna whoop ass, we're gonna do our thing. That for the young guys, like you said, for Brandon Ayuk, Javon Kinlaw, this is big steps going forward the next 8 games because they could make the playoffs and they could okay, they could show up and be players that should have been drafted in the first round. Because a lot of people are coming at Javon Kinlaw. They're coming at like, okay, everyone's talking about DeForest Buckner and all that. So if they lose DeForest Buckner, Javon Kinlaw steps up in the last 8 weeks, they end up making the playoffs. Everyone's gonna be like, okay, the 49ers are running a good shit. They know what they're doing. So
and you said something important there, Marco. You said something important, Marco, about the film and people playing for their jobs. Look, you got free agents. You got a lot of free agents on this roster, and you got guys signed 2-year contracts. Like Jimmy Ward, right? He signed a 2-year extension last year. He's got to play well. He's got to put good tape up here because he's got a roster spot on the line. Jaquiski Tart, he's got to play well. You know what I'm saying? He's got to Richard Sherman. He's got to get back and put some good tape on film to get some money to get that last big contract. Now, I don't think Richard Sherman's going to get a big multi-year contract. He may be getting 1-year deals for the rest of his career, but he's got to put good tape on the film. Look, Lynchy, you want that 5-year option picked up, that 5th-year option picked up? Well, guess what? You got to play well down the stretch here, buddy. If you don't put good tape on film or you don't put out good film, you're not going to get that contract. You're not going to get that money. Teams are going to move off you quickly. So not only that, Saleh and Shanahan. Saleh's playing for a head coaching job. You know what I'm saying? So he's got to put out a great defensive game plan week in and week out and say, hey, look, my defense is playing hard. I can't do anything about what the offense is doing. Everybody's got their job on the line, and Shanahan is playing for a reputation. Because going into next year, if this team just lays down, people are going to say, well, there's 3 losing seasons in the first 4 years of Shanahan. Why did Jay York give him the contract extension? Could Shanahan really be a great head coach? Or is he the next North Turner, where he's a great offensive coordinator and not a great head coach? So, Marco, you're not lying. It is important and imperative to put good film out there and compete at a high level, man, because jobs are on the line and reputations are on the line.
And go ahead, Marco. Go ahead. Wrap up your
thought. The 49ers have already shown if they want someone in the draft, they're going to go up and get them. They did that with Dante Pettis. They did that with Reuben Foster, with Brandon Ayuk. They're going to go get their guy. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about the damn draft pick. Figure out the season, and at the end of the season, then go up and get your guy.
Yeah.
And what I like to say is that it doesn't matter where you're drafting as long as you nail your draft pick. And we've seen that time and time again. You could have all these opportunities, just like you touched on, Bonta, with the 2017 pick. They drafted third. They had the third, initially the 2nd overall pick, traded back. Think about all the options they had with that 3rd pick. Ended up with Solomon Thomas and did not nail it. And again, to your point of sending a message, what is that going to show the rest of the league if the 49ers make the playoffs with $100 million on injured reserve? Like you're sending out a message to all the other head coaches in the league that you're for real, because not only can you win when all your talent's there and you play at a Super Bowl caliber level, you can make the freaking playoffs with 14, 15 guys on IR. Nick Bosa, Richard Sherman, D Ford, the list goes on and on and on. And I think that message, it's not something tangible. You don't get the high draft pick, someone that you can bring in and immediately contribute. But I'm just as big on the culture, what you're building, the kind of message you're sending to your players. That stuff is equally important. And if you can instill that kind of environment within the 49ers locker room, just that kind of resilience, that no matter the circumstance, we're going to go out there each and every week and battle our asses off. That's the kind of organization that every team wants to play for. You're going to have no problem bringing in high free agents, some high caliber free agents, because they're going to want to play for you. No one wants to see this team lose out. That's not why fans watch the games. That's not why players play the game. The goal is to win. And I truly believe that the goal is just to get into the dance and see what you can do. If you can sneak into the playoffs, of course, you don't have those same Super Bowl aspirations as the season started off with. But as long as you're in there, anything can happen. Just take March Madness, for example. Colleges don't go in with the mindset of, oh, we shouldn't try our best to get into the March Madness bracket because we don't think we can win it all. You just try to get in there and you do what you can. And upsets happen in sports all the time. Nick Foles won a freaking Super Bowl against Tom Brady. So why can't Nick Mullins win a few playoff games?
Hey, you know what? You look at the Major League Baseball playoffs. All you got to do is get hot. Look at the Tampa Bay Rays. I know they're number 1 seed, but they got hot. You know the Astros, they got hot and they made a run. You know, these teams make a run. And Shasky said this the other day. He was so spot on. And you see a team like this in the NFL every single season. He took the Miami Dolphins. Think about what that win did for them against the New England Patriots in Week 17 last year. They not only wrecked the Patriots season by not allowing them to win that game and get a bye week and get a home game in the second round where they got to chill for a week. They wrecked their plans to where the Patriots, all of a sudden, Tom Brady's playing his last game a week later. All of a sudden, he's out against the Tennessee Titans. And then Miami Dolphins took that moment to the offseason and said, okay, let's get a quarterback. We made our trade. We got a couple more first-round picks coming up in 2020. They took that momentum into the offseason, and they didn't let it go. And now look at the Dolphins. Yeah, they're not 7-2. They're 5-3, but they are competing. They're in football games. You look at the losses that they had. They're in football games week in and week out, and they believe it's about culture building into the next season. The Raiders were up and down last year, but they were in football games. Now look at them in Vegas. They got a new swag. They're in football games. All of a sudden, they get the monkey off their back by winning in Kansas City against Patrick Mahomes. Carr all of a sudden is letting it deep down the football field, building the culture and taking that momentum. Yeah, you may not make the playoffs, but if you compete at a high level, you look back and say, you know what? We're a play away from winning this football game. And yes, I know we didn't have our studs, but we're close. We're still close. So you don't want to let go of that Super Bowl magic that they had a year ago. You don't want to let go of that NFC magic when you won a division and won a conference. So tanking in, a lot of naysayers are saying lose out, do this and do that. You don't do that, man, because you know what? Those people, the ones that are saying it, had never played sports before. That's a loser.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Nobody goes in. These athletes that suit up on game day, they're not going out there saying, you know what? Like the Jets. The Jets are a perfect example on Monday Night Football. They're 0-8. They're playing in front of the nation. They're playing on a primetime audience, and they're playing the Patriots, who have beat them up for 20 straight years. And you know what the Jets are saying? Flacco and Jamison Crowder and Perryman, they're saying, you know what? This is Monday Night Football. This is our Super Bowl. What the hell with Trevor Lawrence? I don't care about Trevor Lawrence. I may not be on this roster next year. I may not be a New York Jet. I may be playing elsewhere. I may be out of the league. This may be the last roster I ever play on in my life. Let's go out here and try to get a win. Nobody's thinking about, for Trevor. These guys are suiting up, going out there trying to get a W. Because like you said, like you guys keep saying, and like we all keep saying, it's about money. It's about your future. It's about having pride, personal pride. Who the hell wants to be a loser? Who wants to go out there and just lose a football game?
Exactly. For real. I keep bouncing around. For me, what the Niners need to do is just get healthy. As long as they get healthy, they could even lose this game against the Saints. Let's say they're 4-6. You might have to go 5-1 in your final 6 games. Crazier things have happened, but I think just having Raheem Mostert and Deebo Samuel, those are the 2 guys that really made it clear what the identity of this football team was. Run the football, short area passing game, let your playmakers go to work, pick up yards after the catch, make defenders miss. That's who the 49ers are. At least that's what they were with Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm willing to bet that's their best style of play to give them the best chance at winning with Nick Mullins as well. And if those guys can get healthy, this team can squeeze into the playoffs. George Kittle's out 8 weeks. The playoffs are roughly 8 weeks away from now. So if they can just sneak in, somehow crazier things have happened. But I would love to see this team just continue to compete, build off that momentum and success they had last year, and just battle all this adversity, prove to be resilient, because that's what great organizations do.
Well, you talked about the identity of – go ahead, Marco.
It's like what Fred Warner said to Aaron Jones. Even though they're getting beat up on all game, he told Aaron Jones, you're going to fill me all game. I don't care what the score is. And just that's the mentality the 49ers are going to have. You're going to feel me all season. I don't care what our record says.
No, that's stuff. And Dre Greenlaw's he's got to have that mentality. And that's perfect for Fred Warner Jr., who surprised us all, right? We thought Reuben Foster was an heir apparent at middle linebacker. Fred Warner Jr. comes in wearing number 48 in his first game against the Minnesota Vikings, wearing a green dot helmet and taking over. And you talked about the identity, Nick, of this football team. This is what I've been trying to tell people, which is why I never really got caught up in the 8 passing attempts from Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC Championship game. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline. I don't care how good your defense is. I want to keep number 12 on the sideline. So if they're giving me 7 yards a pop in a run game, well, guess what? I'm going to run the ball down your throat. It's the most demoralizing thing on a football field. You ask any high school coach, college coach, when you're running the football down somebody's throat, they know you're running the football. They know what play it is, and you're still having success. It demoralizes a football team. It takes the air out of the sideline. And that's been a Shanahan staple since Mike was coaching back in the Denver days. People forget, yes, they had John Elway at the end of his career. He was out of his prime, but he still had a rocket arm. He was still John Elway. They didn't start cooking until Terrell Davis came into the system, and they started running the football. That's what won them the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers. When he left the game with migraines, things started getting haywire. They go back to Terrell Davis, and he wore down the Packers. That is a Shanahan staple when you look at all the running backs that went over 1,000 yards. They run the football, get the boot action going, the play action pass going. It's a reason why Shanahan said, I like to get the 30 carries. I like to get the 30 carries and basically control the football game. So that's their identity. That's why Mostert, and I didn't realize just how Mostert was just such a home run hitter. The way he runs the football with the physicality, where that Rams game on Sunday Night Football, he was trying to inflict pain. He was trying to deliver punishment all night long. And that's the Shanahan offense, being physical and making people feel you. That's why George Kittle's a great fit. That's why Kyle Juszczyk is a great fit. Running the football is this identity, playing hard defense, physical football, tackling, and running the football. Shanahan, look, the passing numbers are great. And I get everybody plays fantasy football. You all want that 350, that quarterback who's throwing for 350 yards and he's making the highlight plays. Trust me, I want that. After last week and seeing all these quarterbacks let the ball fly all over the league, I miss that. Trust me, I'm tired of the dinking and dunking in this offense. I want the quick strike. I want the bombs. I love Al Davis, his philosophy where he's just, you know what, one play, we're going to let it fly. You're going to know we're letting it fly. We're going to put stress on the defense and make it work for it. So, but running the football is the identity of this football team. People forget that.
Let's go right into one of the next segments we want to talk about is quarterbacks. Which quarterbacks are you looking at as far as next year? There's a lot of hot prospects in the draft right now.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, of course, is on his own tier. We have Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Wilson from Alabama. Which quarterback do you like next year? And do you think the 49ers should invest in the position with their first round draft pick?
Absolutely. I mean, now's the time. And Shanahan has no more excuses because I go back to 2017 when I'm thinking, look, Shanahan, you have a 6-year contract. John Lynch, you have a 6-year contract. Why not start the roster when basically the Niners were an expansion team? They had DeForest Buckner and a bunch of who's who, right? I mean, the roster was terrible after Chip Kelly left. And, you know, obviously you're moving on from Colin Kaepernick. I was thinking if you want to set the culture, if you want to build a culture around a winner, I was like, Deshaun Watson's sitting right there for you. I'm thinking Mitchell Trubisky. Look, I watch college football all the time. Girl gets on my nerves because, hey, let's get out the house on a Saturday. I'm like, I got to watch these guys play. I love college football. I love watching quarterbacks around the league to see who's going to go up and looking at the next wave. Deshaun Watson was the guy. Now let's move on from that, right? He doesn't draft Deshaun Watson. Instead, he moves up to draft C.J. Beathard and then brags to people saying, the only guy I flew out for is Mitchell Trubisky. Well, Shanahan, what's going on here? Like, now all of a sudden I question you on how you evaluate quarterbacks. I can't help myself to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm looking at the quarterbacks on the roster. I'm saying, look, you guys make the trade for Jimmy. If Jimmy's not the guy, fine. If you don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo, move on from him. You should have done it after the Super Bowl run because what told me that he didn't trust Jimmy Garoppolo was not going for it in the 2-minute drill in the Kansas City game where you don't call a timeout. You don't try to double up on a Kansas City Chiefs when you receive the ball. So you know what? You don't trust Jimmy. That's fine. I feel like Jimmy's capable of winning that game, of winning football, and he does have his flaws. He is limited. But move on from him. All right. If you're going to flirt with Tom Brady, move on from Jimmy. Move on. Yep. You don't trust the kid. Okay. So now draft a quarterback because you know what? This class looks good. Zach Wilson, everybody's in love with Zach Wilson from BYU. I love Zach Wilson. He looks good. He's making all the throws. I'm intrigued with Trey Lance because he is a little bigger than Zach Wilson. He looks a little thick than Zach Wilson. And from what I hear, he can make all the throws as well. From what I saw with Trey Lance, I said, oh, my Lord, this guy looks special. But I haven't seen enough of him. Trevor Lawrence, you're not going to get, right? He's going to go number 1, number 2, whatever, which is mind-blowing with the Jets when you think about they just drafted Sam Darnold. Why not take those first-round picks and build around Sam Darnold if he is that dude? But, hey, that's the New York Jets' problem.
Yep.
Justin Fields, I need to see more of him. I was actually at the Fiesta Bowl last year when they played Clemson. At times, he looked really good in person. At times, he looked unsure of himself. And, of course, he threw that interception where he got confused there. I need to see more of Justin Fields. Zach Wilson and Trey Lance just seem like the dudes. You brought up Mac Jones. And what's the difference between Mac Jones and really any quarterback he got on the roster? Sure,
no,
he was slinging. He would throw it deep. But, he's got Waddle. He's got Devontae Smith. He's got playmakers at Alabama. And you got Najee Harris in the backfield.
Of course.
I'm not sold on Mac Jones. Kyle Trask.
So did Tua.
So did Tua. But Tua had that it factor. Tua had that it factor where he took that offense. He unlocked that offense. You know what I'm saying? For the first time you saw Tua step on the field against the Georgia Bulldogs in that national championship, I said, oh, my Lord, you either have it or you don't. And he had that it factor to where he was hitting guys in stride. And look, Mac Jones, is he Tua? I don't think so. I need to see more from Mac Jones. Tua had that it factor. You can just smell it on Tua. You can just look at him, the leadership, the way he threw the football. Tua had that arm, and he was that dude. Kyle Trask, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was impressed with him. I was impressed over the weekend watching him light up Georgia. But look, he's got playmakers. I see Marcos shaking his head. I wouldn't be disappointed if they drafted Kyle Trask. If the Niners don't end up with either Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, those are the only 2 quarterbacks I'm settling for. And I prefer Zach Wilson, but if you end up with Trey Lance, that's something to work with. Now, when it's Jimmy Garoppolo, real quick, I know I'm long-winded here, but he's making 27, 28. We know the contract. He's making a lot of money. Why bring him back if you're going to draft a rookie? Go take that money, go sign a veteran for maybe 10 to 12 million, and go sign an interior lineman. You're looking at Alex Mack, the center, right? Or just get me in the guard or something, because inside, a lot of people don't want to admit it. I know Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the best in the Super Bowl. Shanahan didn't have the best day either. But the interior of the offensive line broke down in that Super Bowl in the 4th quarter. Chris Jones dominated that football game. He really did. And Spagnuolo said, you know what? I'm just going to blitz. I'm going to put pressure on this team to the point where George Kittle is in blocking. He is blocking. Yeah. Your best wide receiver is in blocking on pass plays. I got to get some linemen inside to really protect the quarterback. So I would take, you know what, Jimmy, I like Jimmy. If he got another year to show his stuff and grow with Deebo Samuel and grow with George Kittle and grow with Brendan Ayuk for another year, I'm not mad at that at all, because there is something about timing in training camp. Deebo was out all training camp. Brendan Ayuk gets a hamstring. He suffers a hamstring injury. So does George Kittle. And all of a sudden, they practice throwing to Trent Taylor and Dante Pettis. Trent Taylor and Dante Pettis people are not NFL-like receivers. I don't get the hype about Trent Taylor. All these years, people are telling me, man, this guy's having great camp. He's having great practices. They acted like he was the next Wes Welker. I'm sorry. Trent Taylor is a frail wide receiver who is a good number 5 or a practice squad guy or a scout team dude. And Dante Pettis, I don't need to say anything about Dante Pettis. That's the problem I have with this regime. They don't know how to just take the L. And what I mean by taking the L, this guy's not a good football player. Cut bait. You know what I'm saying? You blew it on the second round, chalk the loss, and move on. They want to hold on to guys. And for what? Same thing with Solomon Thomas. For what? The guy's not contributing on the football team, even when he's got a Bosa, Buckner, Arps. The guy's not making plays. Take the L and move on. So, look, I'm good either way. If you bring back Jimmy with this roster, all right, it's for a year, but you have to draft a quarterback. You absolutely have to draft a quarterback in the 2021 draft.
Yeah, and I think they're going to. I mean, we're already hearing Adam Peters at the Zach Wilson games. He's already watched Mac Jones. So they're going after quarterback. I mean, we're not going to hear if they're talking to Trey Lance or actually at his games because there's no games. But Trey Lance has everything. He could make every throw. He's a really mobile quarterback. Same thing with Zach Wilson. I'm hearing that they're more into Zach Wilson than anyone. That they've had Adam Peters at every game is what I've heard. So that's really interesting to hear because Kyle missed on a couple mobile quarterbacks that he should have had in 2017. Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, a couple of those guys that he should have had. So Kyle's turning back the clock and he's going, hey, he's already said that a young mobile quarterback who's played quarterback his entire career is the move for the NFL. Yes, having Tom Brady is great, but the move is going mobile. So he's going to go mobile in this draft. And I think he takes Wilson or Trey Lance. Those are the two guys that really fit his system as well.
And I think
you got to go mobile. You got to go mobile with a guy who can make throws in the pocket. People forget that. I love a mobile quarterback because Bobby Bowden said this. I drive Joe Shasky crazy with this, but I'm a big Florida State fan. And when Mike Vick played Florida State in the Sugar Bowl, when you guys were a little young, but Mike Vick the Sugar Bowl, Vick lost to Florida State. Peter Warrick had a great game. But Bobby Bowden said the future of quarterback is what Michael Vick looks like. And Randall Cunningham was kind of before that, and Steve Young even was mobile. You need a guy who's mobile. But the thing about Trey Lance and Zach Wilson that separates them and separates Kyler Murray and Tua is they can make throws in the pocket. Because when it comes down to it in crunch time, you got to stick a throw in crunch time from the pocket. And Jimmy at times struggles with that. I do believe that having a straight stationary guy like Tom Brady where you can just blitz him all day long, maybe we're moving on where you need a guy who can extend a play or two. And you got to make the all-scripted play. But you still need a guy who can stick it in the pocket and make a throw. That's what won the Kansas City Chiefs the Super Bowl. Mahomes making a throw in the pocket. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes these great quarterbacks great. Kyler Murray, the throw he made to Christian Kirk last weekend from the pocket on the rope, just a dime. You got to make plays in the pocket. So, yes, I hope Shanahan wants a quarterback who can make a play here and there. And Adam Peters, I know a lot of people are making a big deal about Adam Peters being at Zach Wilson's game. That's good. But that's Adam Peters' job. He needs to be scouting these players. That's your job. He should be at every quarterback game every single year, whether it was last year, all the quarterbacks who were taken. You need to be at these games no matter what. That is your job. Hell, take John Lynch with you as well to go scout these quarterbacks. So I'm not going to give Adam Peters a high five or kumbaya or anything like that because that's him doing his job. You should be scouting these quarterbacks. You should be scouting a quarterback every single season.
Garoppolo. So we've been talking a lot about the culture, and I just don't see how you bring back Jimmy Garoppolo. That just seems like a lot of turmoil is developing with Jimmy Garoppolo's relationship with the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, for whatever reason, does not praise Jimmy Garoppolo. Every opposing quarterback he goes up against during his media press conferences, he's always praising them. He being Kyle Shanahan, he has these weird dynamics with his relationships with Dante Pettis and Jimmy Garoppolo where it's just like, for whatever reason, he can't sing any praise anytime they do anything well. And of course, Dante Pettis has a completely different history with Shanahan, just the way he fell off the map completely. But Jimmy Garoppolo, and there was that story that came out that there was a huge disagreement with how the front office handled his high ankle sprain, him coming back too soon. It just seems like you have to rip off the Band-Aid, just like they did with Dante Pettis. And it's just to the point now, Jimmy Garoppolo, the peak version of himself, the best Jimmy Garoppolo is capable of playing, in my opinion, is what we saw last season when he was going down, battling Drew Brees, just going gut punch for gut punch against the Saints. That is peak Jimmy Garoppolo. That is him at his best. Yes, it's a quarterback you can win with, but when he's not playing at that level, what we've seen against the Arizona Cardinals before he was hurt, mind you, he was not hurt week 1 against the Cardinals. He cost the 49ers that game. If he elevated his play, if he played better, the 49ers win. It's as simple as that. So I think we've seen enough of Jimmy Garoppolo to know that he's just a quarterback. When he's on, he's on. He's up there, top 10 in the league. But when he's off, he's really, really bad. And for a team with Super Bowl aspirations that has a Super Bowl caliber roster, when you look at guys like Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner, this is going to be a good competitive football team. And you need consistency from the quarterbacks. You just don't get that from Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. And if he's not your guy, move on. It's that simple. If Shanahan, you don't trust the guy, if you couldn't trust him in the Super Bowl, move on. And this is where I get on Jimmy for being too nice, right? You're too nice. Like the team's flirting with Tom Brady. I'm telling them, I'm flirting with Tom Brady. I just took this team to the Super Bowl. Really? That's what you want to do? All right. You need to have a little jerk in you at the quarterback spot. Like Aaron Rodgers has a little jerk in him. You know what I'm saying? Tom Brady's a jerk at times. You know what I'm saying? Marino was salty as hell. Like, you know what? Like, I'm over this stuff where you're just too nice. And you're right. The Arizona game, I was disappointed because he needed to elevate his game. Like I gave him mulligan and going out there. Like, look, we're going out there with Trent Taylor, Dante Pettis, and Kendrick Bourne. I get it. All right, I get it. They're not the best wide receivers, but you know what? You need to stick a throw when you need to stick a throw. You need to stick the throw to Kendrick Bourne when he beats Patrick Peterson. Like, you need to stick the throw to Dante Pettis deep, even though Dante Pettis got rerouted off his route and went out like a suck on that play. Like, move on. It's time to move on. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, and like, I'm a Garoppolo fan. I don't think he's as bad as what people think. But I don't think he's as good. Like, he has his limitations. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Mahomes. He's never going to be that guy. But can you win football games? Like Shanahan, all right, now's your time to go get a quarterback. Go get the dude that you wanted. But what scares me about Shanahan was that he was hell-bent on getting Kirk Cousins. Like, you were ready to just hitch your wagon to Kirk Cousins? Like, come on, Shanahan, you're better than that. Kirk Cousins is not winning you anything. I'm sorry. Like, so that concerns me with Shanahan, where he has this infatuation with some of these quarterbacks who just aren't good, who are just mediocre. And now you don't like Jimmy, a guy where your record without Jimmy Garoppolo is not very good. Now, I'm not saying that Jimmy Garoppolo won all those football games. You did it with strong running game. You did it with great defense. You did it with solid special teams. But Jimmy did when he needed to step up last year against Arizona, against New Orleans, against the Rams on Saturday night. The last game against Seattle where he goes 18 for 22, he helped you win those football games. He didn't kill you, So I do think, though, Nick and Marco, that it is time. You know what? All the turmoil. Why would Jimmy Garoppolo want to come back to this situation where you got a head coach who doesn't trust you? The fan base is basically turned on you. They don't think you're any good. You're not throwing a deep ball. You're throwing ducks. Move on. If I'm Jimmy, I would want to move on. And if I'm the 49ers, it's time to go a different direction.
Yep. And we had Mike Schumann on last week, and something he was talking about was how Kyle Shanahan is so hands-on with his quarterbacks. It's almost like he wants to live his dream out through whoever his quarterback is. Like, he does not give Garoppolo a long leash. He calls plays for Garoppolo to deliver the ball to receiver X. And also Shanahan just having that ego that he can turn any player into something special has costed the 49ers. No draft analyst had CJ Beathard going in the third round. He was a day 3 quarterback from the jump. No one in their right mind was like, not a single expert analyst was out there thinking, CJ Beathard's going to go day 2. No, Kyle Shanahan took him because he was tough and felt like he can develop him as a quarterback. Joe Williams. What about Joe Williams? The guy retired from football. Kyle Shanahan made John Lynch put him back on the draft board. I can make this guy something special. Joe Williams never played a snap for the 49ers, one of the worst draft picks over the course of the last 4 years. So Kyle Shanahan, yes, we see him as an offensive genius. He displays that a great amount and deserves credit for that. But him thinking he can turn any player into something special has costed the team. And I'm just hoping it doesn't continue to cost the team moving forward.
Nick, he's still on the roster. Why is CJ Beathard still on this roster? I mean, when he got into the game, the guy was getting murdered in the pocket. Like, quarterbacking at a high level, the great quarterbacks and the very good ones, solid quarterbacks know how to protect themselves from getting taking kill shots in the pocket. CJ Beathard has almost died on the football field a couple times, man. Remember the Chargers in Carson, California? It was like, bro, protect yourself. Protect yourself. This guy doesn't know how to protect himself. And we all watch college football. There's nobody even in the Big Ten that said, you know what, CJ Beathard's a great player. Man, CJ Beathard, we had to play the Iowa Hawkeyes. We really had to worry about CJ Beathard. Nobody was thinking about CJ Beathard, man. Nobody. And you stuck with him, and you still have him on the roster. Nick Mullins is a great story. He's a backup. Maybe a lot of people drunk to play with Muddy Mullins, and I know I gave him that name, and people came down my road like, oh, man, you're calling him Muddy. What's the joke behind that? Like Nick Mullins, I've never been a Nick Mullins fan. Even when Michael Silver came out with the report talking about, Garoppolo, if he struggles, we're going to go to Nick Mullins. I'm like, why? Why? Nick Mullins has a below-average arm. He doesn't have any awareness, and I get Justin School last week didn't do him any favors. Nick Mullins will at least take chances, but, man, that's probably a detriment to his football game. So, look, this is a big offseason for Shanahan because Shasky's kind of coming around in this, and I throw this out on Twitter. Niner fans get on me all the time because for some reason Shanahan walks on water. You know what I'm saying? He's getting compared to Bill Belichick. Let him just be – let's compare him to Sean McVay, all right? Let's see where him and Sean McVay are at. And whether or not people like this or not, him and Sean McVay are right there. Like, Sean McVay's gone to the playoffs a couple times. He took an offense that was the worst in the league. And I get the Rams had a lot more talent than the Niners when Sean McVay took over that program. But they were the worst offense in pro football, and they went to number 1 the next year. They get to the playoffs. Nobody thought Jared Goff was going to be a comparable quarterback in the league. He got Jared Goff paid. Now, that may be the detriment to the LA Rams in the future, but let's just compare him to McVay. Let's see if he can get to Andy Reid's level before we start going full Bill Belichick on Shanahan. This is why, and I'll continue to say this, I would have waited on a contract extension for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. At the time, I said, you know what? Jay York is maturing. He's trying to stabilize the franchise. I get it. I like the move. But at the same time, it's almost a direct correlation to where, oh, man, I didn't get Jim Harbaugh a contract extension. We saw what happened. The house caught on fire, with Jim Harbaugh and Trip Baalke. All of a sudden, I got to make changes, and I choose the GM over the head coach. And all of a sudden, the GM can't make draft picks, and now my program's – nobody's coming to my games because I got an expansion team now. You maybe jumped the gun on just handing out contract extensions, man. I've been on that now for a few months now, where it's like, did you really have to give him an extension? Did you really have to just give him another 6 years? This is year 4. Just wait.
I know.
It's not when he gets the salary cap. Put some pressure on him. So now Shanahan is comfortable. He's comfortable saying, you know what, I'm here for another 3 to 4 years, at least no matter how this thing goes. So this is a big offseason for Shanahan. He's got to get this quarterback. He's got to turn this thing around because there are no more excuses. There's quarterbacks here. I like this draft class when it comes to quarterbacks. Get me a Zach Wilson. Go get a Trey Lance, and let's see what it do. Run your boot game. Let's see what happens when you got a quarterback who will throw that thing deep, 50, 60 yards out of football field. I don't want to hear anything else from Shanahan. Go get your quarterback now. You don't like Jimmy Garoppolo? Well, move on, wash your hands, and move on from him.
We love it. Bonta, we know you got to get going. You got your morning roast show prep. We'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We hope to have you on in the future.
Yeah, no doubt. I know we didn't get to like the midseason awards and the MVP or the biggest disappointment. So, you know what? I'll give you an MVP real quick. If it's just for the 49ers,
go for it.
Go to Fred Warner Jr.
Yep.
When it comes to Rookie of the Year, give it to Brandon Ayuk. The biggest surprise, Jason Verrett. I'll go Jason Verrett as the biggest surprise. I know we got cooked by DK Metcalf, but I go Jason Verrett there. Biggest disappointment, it starts with the quarterback. Everything starts with the quarterback. The biggest disappointment is Jimmy Garoppolo. No doubt about it. And that's, midseason awards. Look, Javon Kinlaw, I see you guys tweeting about Kinlaw. I like the pick. However, the trade Buckner for just a first-round pick. We started this podcast talking about culture and culture building.
I was going to hit that. Yep.
When Buckner got traded, Nick and Marco, I heard from people inside the organization and outside the organization that said, damn, Bonta, that's maybe a move I don't make. That guy was the heart and soul of that defensive line. He was the glue to that defensive line. The defensive line gravitated around Buckner, not Armstead. I'm not trying to rip Eric Armstead, but Buckner was the leader of that defensive line. And you traded the heart and soul for what? A first-round pick? Because you know what? Here's the thing. Make him come back in another year. You try to work on a deal, and you franchise Armstead to say, Armstead, prove to us that you can play like that again and bring back Buckner. There was no reason to trade Buckner ahead of time because of dollars and cents. I guarantee you Buckner would have worked with the 49ers to try to get back here. And now you look at what happened with Indianapolis. They're stuffing the run. And I know they had struggles in the second half with Lamar Jackson, but they're on the field the whole damn half. They're going to wear out a defense no matter how good you are. Buckner has changed that defense in Indianapolis, and now look at the 49ers. Having Buckner, and then you make the draft. Look, again, Kinlaw could be a good player. Now, I know the numbers aren't there yet. I think there is something not having OTAs and being around Coach Kocurek in mini camp where you can get that work with an NFL defensive line coach like Chris Kocurek. I don't want to make excuses for Kinlaw, but I think there's something there. But you make a pick to bring in Kinlaw. Now, all of a sudden, Kinlaw has to live up to Buckner? How fair is that? How fair is that to Kinlaw? And how logical is that if you're a 49er fan? It just doesn't make sense to trade one of your marquee blue chip players and you bring back Armstead for $85 million. This is a move that basically destroys cultures. And like now we're asking who's the leader of this football team? Who's the leader? We're nailing it. So Nick, before you go, I don't know, man.
Bonta, before you go, I was gonna nail this. The two things Buckner brings to the table, you can always count on: dependability. He's missed one game in 5 years. One game. Mm-hmm. You can't underestimate the ability to be relied on every single Sunday. And then leadership. You nailed it. This team, the two things that have hurt this team the most, availability, players getting injured left and right, and a lack of leadership. And that is exactly what DeForest Buckner brought to the team.
I mean, you look at Joe Staley, he retires, and now Mike McGlinchey looks like a stiff. You know what I'm saying? He's not playing good football at all. I went down to Levi Stadium and watched him because I know the fan base has been hard on him. He came out talking about the armchair quarterbacks, and I'm one of those armchair quarterbacks.
I'm one of those armchair quarterbacks.
But I know what my eyes see, and I see a football player that is struggling right now without his big brother Joe Staley. Mike McGlinchey, you're playing for your 49er career. Now you may move on and get another job somewhere else, but you got to play better, and they need a leader. They need leadership in this locker room right now. Somebody's got to step up. So hopefully it starts this Sunday with New Orleans Saints. Maybe they can get back on track before the bye week and get healthy here. But there's a lot of question marks with this football team moving forward, man. And it's just shaping up to be a make or break all season that could set the Niners up for the next 3 to 4 years or set them back for the next 3 to 4 years.
That's a great point. Bonta, again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Anytime, Nick and Marco. Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all, man. Good stuff, man.
Right on, Bonta. Marco, let's continue this talk on DeForest Buckner. So, DeForest Buckner, this has been one of the most controversial debates throughout the day. Where I stand with DeForest Buckner, and I'm not jumping ship here. I was saying this from the beginning. Yes, it logically makes sense. You get rid of DeForest Buckner, you bring in the 13th overall pick. That's what you get back from the Colts. You're able to sign Eric Armstead. You're able to sign Jimmy Ward. I just felt like it was the wrong move right off the bat for the reasons that Bonta Hill just talked about. It destroys your culture. He was a pillar of the organization. This organization was at the bottom of the ocean, just as low as it can possibly have ever been in 2016 with Chip Kelly. They were at the very bottom. DeForest Buckner was the lone bright spot. And it's one thing that he talked about in that article that came out from The Athletic today is to go from 2-14 to winning the Super Bowl, or to making it to the Super Bowl, not winning, obviously, but just appearing in the Super Bowl, to being traded just broke him. It hurt him. He never saw it coming. And I just think that sends the wrong message to pay two guys, those two guys being Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward, who completely underachieved throughout the first 4 or 5 years of their career, and then pay them after one good season when DeForest Buckner was as stable and as consistent as they come. It was a move that never sit well with me, and over time, it's not looking any better. We'll see what Javon Kinlaw does throughout his career, but Javon Kinlaw has not done anything through 9 games to be like, wow, this guy can be something special. He'll have a pressure. He'll have a deflected pass at the line of scrimmage, but the wow factor is not there with DeForest Buckner, with Javon Kinlaw when it was there with DeForest Buckner as a rookie.
So for me, at first, I was really upset when the 49ers sent away DeForest Buckner. He's one of my favorite players on the 49ers team, as he was always on the field and always making plays. So when they traded him away, I was kind of upset. Like, how do you trade away your leader? Like, he's literally been here for the 49ers for the last 40 years and hasn't missed a damn game. But then I started looking at it, and I understand the team building process around it. I understand that you either keep two of your returning players to try to make another run for the Super Bowl, as their whole team was pretty much intact, or you lose 2 guys and now you have to replace a free safety, which I think they should have. They drafted a 3rd round pick to replace Jimmy Ward, but that's another topic. And then you have a missing defensive lineman, so you have to replace 2 guys essentially. So when I don't like the deal. I mean, I understand it. But when you talk about Javon Kinlaw, I think the biggest thing with everyone looking at Javon Kinlaw is the 49ers drafted Javon Kinlaw planning to pair him next to Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa goes out. So we're not really seeing, and Javon Kinlaw has made plays where I'm like, okay, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. Or I'm not worried about him, because there's plays where he whips the guard's butt right off the snap, and he just doesn't finish. And that's plays that players learn how to finish going into their careers. Like after their first season, they learn how to finish. And I think Javon Kinlaw has done great in the run game. And I'm not worried about Kinlaw, but I'm more worried about who's going to step up as a leader. I see Fred Warner doing it, and I love how Fred Warner's doing it. But you lost a real big heart and soul, not just of your defense, but of your entire organization. So who's going to step up and lead the organization?
One thing with DeForest Buckner that does not get touched on a lot is the 49ers agreed to his fifth-year option. They exercised his fifth-year option. So he was going to make only $12 million this year before the whole contract extension started swirling around. They could have paid him the $12 million. That's $6 more million than what Eric Armstead's cap hit is this season. But as Bonta said, there's no doubt. There's no doubt in our minds they could have found a middle ground. I fully believe that. I think the 49ers started drooling at the possibility of getting a first-round pick in return for DeForest Buckner, which I'll admit that's a tremendous value to get a first-round pick for an interior defensive lineman. I don't know if they could have got more. Maybe they could have gotten more. I don't know that for certain. I don't know if you have any sort of inside scoop on that. But DeForest Buckner, an interior defensive lineman that you drafted, what was he, 7th overall? He was inside the top 10. I want to say he was 7th overall in the 2016 draft. Getting a first-round return for Buckner, that's a good return. But you're just losing so much more than the actual on-field production, the leadership, the culture, what he meant to the franchise, the role model he was to other young players. You lost a lot. And you're not really getting that with Eric Armstead, who is the player you decided to keep around after his one good season, Jimmy Ward. So if you look at the two guys that really came back because of DeForest Buckner's trade, both of them are underachieving. And like you're talking about with Javon Kinlaw, this is my big problem. My problem is you don't draft people who are not capable of making game-changing plays, drafting them in the first round or signing them to $85 million contracts. When they're without their running mates like Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw are right now, you need your $85 million defensive lineman in your first-round draft pick to make things happen on their own. It's the NFL. Very rarely are you going to have your 100% starting lineup out there every single Sunday. So you need to have the ability to make game-changing plays on your own, and I'm not seeing that with Eric Armstead for certain, and Javon Kinlaw hasn't really flashed that yet.
But when you're putting together a team, you got to build around what you have as it is. Who were they going to draft at 14 overall? They already had Trent Williams. That deal was already, from what I had heard, it was already in place that they already knew that was going to happen when they took Javon Kinlaw. So when they took Javon Kinlaw, they already knew they're going to have a left tackle protecting Jimmy. They have a right tackle in Mike McGlinchey who isn't the best, but he's not the worst. The right tackle there is. And then you also have Nick Bosa. They have D Ford, who they were planning on getting back healthy. They had Armstead. They have 3 good linebackers. They have 2 good safeties and 2 good corners. Where do you pick where that guy is going to start right away? The only other spot is defensive tackle.
I just feel like if you're going to draft a position or a player where you're drafting them to fit in amongst others and you're not looking for them to be able to contribute as an individual and do things on their own without whoever else is on your defensive line, you draft that player in the 3rd round. You're drafting for development essentially, and there were plenty of developmental defensive linemen in this draft. Looking at Justin Matabuke, who got drafted by the Ravens out of Texas A&M, looking at Raekwon Davis, the massive defensive lineman from Alabama. For me, you draft guys that you want to develop, plug and play players, guys that are going to rotate on your defensive line. That's what you do rounds 2 through 7. But in the first round, you draft for impact, you draft for game-changing players. And sure, Javon Kinlaw may have that potential, but I just have not seen anything to be like, wow, this guy can really develop into a Pro Bowl type defensive tackle. I know it's extremely early in his career, but if you look at DeForest Buckner and what he accomplished as a rookie, and again, it's unfair, like Bonta said, to compare Javon Kinlaw to DeForest Buckner. Buckner went to Oregon. He was a top 10 draft pick, was largely regarded as one of the best interior defensive linemen in his draft class. He had 6 sacks and 18 quarterback hits as a rookie, had 74 tackles. He had a tremendous rookie season, and he jumped off the page immediately, whereas Javon Kinlaw, he has 1 quarterback hit. He's had a very quiet rookie season, and you really have to dig deep to find anything that he's done particularly well or anything that has jumped off the page. He just looking at through the eye test, he's not passing it as a first-round pick that's going to wow you. And that's tough for any defensive linemen, but that's why I just avoid interior defensive linemen in the first round. That is my draft strategy. You're certain positions you draft in the first round and certain positions you don't. You draft for impact looking at quarterbacks, left tackles, right tackles, wide receiver occasionally, edge rushers, and cornerbacks. Those are the most important positions in football, and that's what you invest your first round draft capital in.
See, so I'm looking at DeForest Buckner's first 9 games. He had 3 sacks and he only had, let me look at his QB hits. 3, 6, 8 QB hits. So his first 9 games weren't as productive as Javon Kinlaw. Yeah, 3 sacks, but Javon Kinlaw has been really, really great in the run game, and he's made some plays where he's close to the quarterback and he just doesn't finish. He doesn't have that ability yet to finish the play. And there's times where I'm watching. I told you the other day through text. A lot of times I don't even watch the quarterback or where the ball is. I watch the trenches. That's just me. I watch the trenches during plays, and he's doing much better than what people are talking about him. And that's going to come because they traded DeForest Buckner pretty much for him. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to pump the brakes on the Javon Kinlaw isn't it yet, just because he didn't have a mini camp, didn't have training camp, and didn't have that ability to work with NFL coaching his first year.
I think Javon Kinlaw can develop into a very serviceable and solid interior defensive tackle. I just don't think developing a defensive tackle is something you do in the first round. There's plenty of other players like that. Like, look at Kevin Givens, for example. Kevin Givens is flashing just as much, if not more, than Javon Kinlaw, and he was undrafted. You can find guys at the defensive tackle position. Very rarely do you get a huge impact from the interior of a defensive line unless you have a DeForest Buckner or Aaron Donald, who's in his own tier. It's not even close how much of his own tier he is on. Geno Atkins, Fletcher Cox. Let's transition this conversation because we're approaching the hour mark within the next 8 minutes. This is a rather long pod. We usually aim to go 45, 50 minutes. We had Bonta Hill on earlier. Tremendous guest. Looking forward to having him on later. We heard from Bonta his midseason awards. Let's go over ours, starting with team MVP. Bonta said Fred Warner. Who's your team MVP?
Oh, no-brainer, Fred Warner. No-brainer.
It's a consensus. Fred Warner is the most valuable player to the 49ers football team. He's been, throughout his career, he's never missed a game either. He's one of those guys like DeForest Buckner that you can count to play every single Sunday, Thursday, Monday, whatever game day is on. And he plays at such a high level from start to finish. I was so impressed by him against the Packers in the midst of a blowout. The team's down 34-3, and he's just still flying all over the field, making tackles. He's the consensus most valuable player of this football team. Let's spice things up a little bit. Out of all the injured players, who do you think the team is missing the most? Which player, if you can bring one player back that's on IR who is injured right now, who are you bringing back? Who is the most missed injured player?
I'm definitely going Nick Bosa. I mean, we're missing that presence of Nick Bosa. He elevates everyone on this roster from the offensive side to the defensive side he even elevates Jed York, to be honest with you. He makes Jed York smile, and he keeps Jed York in the stands throughout the entire game and doesn't have him leaving. So that's why I go Nick Bosa.
I agree. Nick Bosa is the one player I would bring back, but I'm going to go to the offensive side of the ball because I think this is an interesting look or a take that may not be. You know where I'm going with this? Is it 8-ball Raheem Mostert?
Yep.
So Nick Bosa, if I could bring one player back from injured reserve, it would be Nick Bosa. But looking at the offensive side of the ball, it would not be George Kittle. It would be Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert, you cannot replicate on this offense. He has speed that no other player possesses. He's a home run threat every time the ball is in his hands. I would elect him to come off of IR and to plug into this offense, not George Kittle, because Shanahan can scheme around not having Kittle and even Garoppolo to an extent, but the ground game misses Raheem Mostert. I cannot wait to see him come back. Hopefully it's this Sunday against the Saints because he's the one that takes the 49ers offense to the next level. Let's jump into Rookie of the Year. I sent this poll out earlier, and it was Brandon Ayuk by a landslide. It was like 9 votes Brandon Ayuk to every 1 vote Javon Kinlaw. And that's why wide receiver, interior defensive linemen don't typically win ever defensive rookie of the year. I'm trying to think if Aaron Donald won it. Aaron Donald may have won it. You have to typically be an edge rusher or a cornerback or an outstanding linebacker on the defensive side of the ball. Both sides of the ball, I have Brandon Ayuk. He has the wow factor. You look at what he did against Philadelphia, hurdling that defender. He's clearly a wide receiver that was born to play in this Kyle Shanahan offense. He's jumping off the page, just watching him play, making highlight reel plays, which is what I want out of a first-round pick. So I have him over Javon Kinlaw. Who do you got as your rookie of the year?
Well, I looked up Aaron Donald. He did win Rookie of the Year, so give the defensive tackles a little bit of credit. Aaron Donald's in a different category in the NFL. But Brandon Ayuk is my go-to guy. I like the pick. I went back and watched the tape on him coming out of college, and I was like, whoa, how did I miss? Like, because usually I was watching everyone, and I had him ranked 7th in my ranking, and I was like, whoa, how did I have him so low? That dude is a freak athlete, and I think he's going to be a superstar in the NFL. Like I told you a couple pods ago, Brandon Ayuk is a better version of Odell Beckham.
Better version's bull. He's got a ways to go, but I like
better
what
version.
I've seen.
Give him a quarterback, Nick. Give him a quarterback, and he's.
We'll see. We'll see who ends up having the better career. Odell's fell off the last couple of years. He's nowhere near the player that he used to be. Why that's the case, who knows? Let's jump into the biggest surprise. Who have you been most surprised by this year? In a positive way, because we'll get into disappointment next.
Surprised by most this year? I'm going to have to go with Kerry Hyder.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think Kerry Hyder was going to be much on this roster. Tip my hat off to him. He's balled out. Has a great season, and hopefully he finishes with another strong 8 games, and the 49ers look at re-signing him because he could be something alongside Nick Bosa and whoever else they have on the other side, and I like what he has.
I'm going to spin off that a little bit, not get into my biggest surprise yet, but I was thinking about this because I was on the verge of writing an article prioritizing the biggest free agents, who the 49ers should re-sign out of their own free agents, and I think Kerry Hyder won't come back for this reason. He was signed to be a rotational pass rusher. He was signed to be a depth piece, and he's shown that he's a starting caliber NFL defensive end. Would you not agree with that? He's a starter, right? He's starting right now, and he's playing exceptionally well. I can see a team being impressed by that and giving him a $6-7 million contract. The 49ers aren't going to be able to afford that. So this is what I'm thinking. Solomon Thomas comes back next year on a very similar contract as to the one that they gave Kerry Hyder, because Kerry Hyder just priced himself. He's in a contract year. He priced himself out of the team's budget looking ahead. I could be way off on that, but why wouldn't he get a $5-6 million contract?
I wouldn't give him a $5 or $6 million contract. I don't think he's a starting caliber defensive end. You talked about Marcus Golden. Last year he had a great season. He had a 10-sack season. No one wanted to sign him, Nick. Why? Some players just aren't starting caliber players. I think Kerry Hyder is a great depth piece. And I don't think he's that starting caliber. He doesn't have the knee explosion because he's had a torn Achilles. He has a really, really terrible knee explosion coming out. The reason why he's getting all this sacks and pressures is because his motor. He's not winning right off the line. These quarterbacks have a lot of time, and he's getting his sacks 3 or 4 seconds into the play. That's not starting caliber defensive end.
I have a hard time imagining that there's not at least one out of 31 other general managers in the NFL who would look at Kerry Hyder and what he's done this season and think, wow, this guy can be a starter for us. Let's give him a $6-7 million contract. The 49ers wouldn't be foolish enough to do that, but I do think that another NFL general manager we'll see what happens, or another general manager would, We have to wait about 4 months or so to find the answer out to that. My biggest surprise, Jerick McKinnon. I've been hard on Jerick McKinnon because a report came out that he was battling tired legs. He's been through a lot. And I'm happy for the man that he is finally being able to contribute to the 49ers. Back-to-back devastating knee injuries, or he had that one knee injury that sat him out 2 years, never fully recovered, wasn't able to contribute last year, was signed going into the 2018 season. missed the Super Bowl last year, and then he finally has his opportunity to contribute this year, and he's on pace for 10 touchdowns, over double digits in touchdowns. He's very quietly been a reliable red zone player, both as a receiving threat and running the football. So I have Jerick McKinnon as my biggest surprise because no one thought he would ever play a snap for the 49ers. And if they were to cut him this offseason, it would have made all the sense in the world. Let's go back and revisit what Bonta said. Bonta Hill's biggest surprise, Jason Verrett. And how could you argue against that? Jason Verrett has exceeded all expectations. Very similarly, is in the same boat as Jerick McKinnon, where if the 49ers were to cut these guys in the offseason, no one would have batted an eye. Nobody would. They would have been like, okay, you got rid of two guys whose careers have completely been dismantled by injuries. Both of them have been balling out. Jerick McKinnon had an extremely hot start to the season, spelling off a little bit, had a touchdown again against the Packers, right? He was the one that punched in. And so our three biggest surprises between Marco, Bonta, and myself, Jason Verrett, Kerry Hyder, and Jerick McKinnon. Let's get into the biggest disappointment of the season, halfway through. These are mid-season awards. Of course, there's still 7 football games to be played. Mid-season awards, your biggest disappointment is?
Man, my biggest disappointment. You go first on this one, Nick, because I still have to. There's two guys I'm
so
contemplating.
You can go whichever way you want with this. I'm going to exclude any player who is battling injury. Injuries are something that's out of the player's control. Nobody wants to get hurt. So I don't think it's fair to call a player a disappointment because they got injured. That's something that's out of their control. Yes, you can be disappointed as a fan that they got hurt, but you can't hold that against the player. So I am trying my best to stay away from that. And of course, you can look at Jimmy Garoppolo. That was Bonta's biggest disappointment. Garoppolo's hurt, but before he was hurt, he was a disappointment because he looked bad against the Cardinals. You have Dee Ford, Richard Sherman, Nick Bosa. You can be disappointed with the 49ers injury and training staff. My biggest disappointment on field plays, there's 3 guys in particular that I can just roast, and I'm going to select 2 of them. I like to call them the $113 million men. The $113 million men, Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward. Their contract value, their combined contract value, and the contracts they received this offseason was $113.5 million. $85 million going out to Eric Armstead, $28.5 going out to Jimmy Ward. Regardless of whether or not they play out their entire contracts and they earn that dollar amount is irrelevant in my opinion. They receive these contracts to be game changers and to be able to continue the level of play that they displayed last year. And of course, the circumstances have changed. You're without Nick Bosa. You're without Dee Ford. You traded Quan Alexander. Your pass rush is nowhere where it needed to be. DeForest Buckner's gone, obviously. Eric Armstead, if you're going to pay someone $85 million, regardless, again, whether or not that contract's played out or not, we'll see. The team can cut him down the road and save money. But if you're going to give out a contract of that size, you need to be able to make plays on your own. You need to be able to change the game with the big play occasionally. Eric Armstead does not bring that to the table whatsoever. Jimmy Ward, same boat. Jimmy Ward has not picked off a pass, does not have an interception in almost 4 full years. 4 full years without Jimmy Ward having an interception. So I've been extremely disappointed with the $113.5 million men because I feel like they got rich off of other players, and that just drives me crazy. It's like the kid in the group project when you get your report back that everybody gets an A. Everybody gets an A. Everybody's making their money. Well, guess what? It turns out you guys may have contributed last year, so that may be unfair to say. But now that all that talent around you is gone, you're going back to your old selves where we're going to see no big plays. You're going to get 3 sacks. Eric Armstead's on pace for 3 sacks. Jimmy Ward is just – I don't blame Jimmy Ward for accepting the contract. Who in their right mind would not accept $28.5 million? It's on John Lynch. And I was talking to a colleague of mine, Jack Hammer, on Twitter about this today. You can't fault the players for accepting those contracts. It's not Jimmy Ward's fault that Tarvarius Moore is just rotting on the bench because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan decided to give Jimmy Ward a 3-year contract worth $28.5 million. It's not Eric Armstead's fault that he's the same player he was for the first 4 or 5 years in his career, a glorified run defender who can't rush the passer, and get upset with him because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan thought he would be something else. But it's just been very disappointing that those two guys cannot step up, especially Eric Armstead, because he's out there responding to beat writers who are being critical of him, making it personal. Like, oh, you don't know what I'm doing. Whatever, Eric Armstead. You're not playing well. You're not living up to your contract. You have 1.5 sacks this year. You have a sack and a half this season. Whoop-de-doo. You're getting paid $85 million. Go out there and make a play. You're getting outperformed by Kerry Hyder, who's making $1 million. And that's just Eric Armstead, Jimmy Ward. Those are my two biggest disappointments. There's one other player that I'm sure you will probably touch on, but if you don't, I'll jump right back in there and add him to my list because it needs to be acknowledged.
So at first I was thinking of Trent Williams because everyone's like, whoa, Trent Williams. Trent Williams is supposed to come in and be this all-pro, this elite left tackle, this dude that was unbeatable. He was in camp, everyone hyping him up to be the best left tackle that I've ever seen with both my own two eyes. And he hasn't played at that level. He's had bonehead mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, big penalties that have cost the 49ers drives. He's given up 5 sacks, I believe, or 4 sacks. He hasn't played to the standard that I have of a left tackle when they're supposed to be elite, looking to get paid $20 million from an NFL team to be their next tackle. We look at the guys like Ronnie Stanley and all those guys. They don't give up plays like that. But I wanted to hit on because Mike McGlinchey, man. I know that's what you wanted me to go with, and I was already thinking it. But Mike McGlinchey is really a great run defender, or a great run blocker. Great run blocker. But at some point, you have to realize that this is a pass-happy league. And at some point, you're going to need to pass the damn ball, and you're going to need a right tackle who blocks the best edge rushers in the NFL. The best edge rushers come off the right side. And Mike McGlinchey just can't do so. And he's had a good couple games. He's had a good reps. A lot of people like to pick on the bad reps that he has. But as an NFL player, you have to have perfect games, and you can't have any bad reps. And that's why I went with Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, because they've played well, but then they also played like, whoa, like, why are these two dudes on the field right now? Like, they're not the caliber players they think they are. But my other guy that I was thinking about going was George Kittle. Only because it's a disappointment for me, because I thought he was going to get paid and take care of his body when he comes out and plays. But he's still playing that reckless mentality that I'm going to go 190%. And at some point, you have to realize you're more important to this team when you're on the field than when you're off. And I need you to be healthy. So that's why I ended up going with them, because I don't like to go on an injured guy, because no one wants to be injured. But I'm going to need him to stay healthy from now on.
To play devil's advocate, because I've been an advocate for George Kittle changing his style of play. This is something that Mike Schumann and I were talking about over summer when his contract extension was looming, that he does not play like a guy who can have a 10-year NFL career. But just with the way he's gotten hurt this year, the two injuries that I recall, there was the high pass from Jimmy Garoppolo, completely out of his control, where Budda Baker hit him in the knee. And then this play against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago, or going on 2 weeks ago, was just a freak thing with his foot where he went up to catch the football, did an excellent job of doing so, and came down funny. So the two injuries that he suffered this season were pretty much out of his control. But I do agree with you that he needs to change his style of play and play more cautiously, because it's inevitable that he's going to take a big hit at some point in the future where he could have just went out of bounds. Depending on, like, the play against New Orleans, when the game's on the line like that, you need that effort. You need to go 110%. Yeah. But there's times where it's not necessary. Like, if it's the first quarter of a game and it's 3rd and 7, you already pick up the first down. You don't always need to fight to pick up 3 extra yards. It's okay to run out of bounds. It's almost like a quarterback protecting himself. Just get the yardage you need and get out of bounds to protect yourself. We all love George Kittle because of his style of play, but it is a cause for concern, an area of concern moving forward.
And the reason why I wanted to say George Kittle, because all those big hits that he takes fighting for extra yards, they take a toll on your body, and those could be reasons you break bones in your body. They could be reasons why you tear ligaments. And that's why you have to take care of your body. But I do agree that the how many million? 13 million?
The $113.5 million men. Jimmy Ward and
$113.5 million men are duds, and so is Mike McGlinchey.
Yeah. That's just my like, you should not evaluate. Yes, football is a team sport, but you can't ignore the individual performances. And if you can't perform as an individual when you're not surrounded by elite talent, one, I don't believe you deserve to get drafted in the first round. That's not a knock on Javon Kinlaw. He may be able to develop into that, but this is Eric Armstead's 6th season now. He should be able to make game-changing plays on his own, or at least do something on his own. He's not really doing that, and that's the issue I have with him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, at some point, you have to step up, especially when your team is depleted of defensive linemen and you're looking for that dude. You have to step up at some point. I'm not a fan of attacking players and having other people attack players, but at some point, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong and why am I not succeeding? And hopefully his kid, I've seen he has a baby on the way. Hopefully it gives him a reason to want to play the game a little bit more. A lot of times when people have a kid, it gives you that extra edge. And I hope that it does. I hope it does for Eric Armstead because I really like him. He's a 49er. So hopefully it does give him that edge. And
that's something my brother would call the Fred VanVleet effect. Remember in the NBA Finals a couple years ago, Fred VanVleet had the baby, and all of a sudden he was knocking down all these shots after struggling all series. So I'm with you that there's times where having a kid or having some significant life change elevates your play. It's crazy how that works out. I want to add one. This is not necessarily an award. But let's say you can sign one player to a contract extension right now, all things considered. You can consider how many years they have remaining on their contract or if their contract's up. Who is one player that you would lock up right now if you had the power to do so?
If I had the power to lock someone up, all things considered, I'm locking up Fred Warner.
Yep.
Signing him right now, not letting him play another season because his value is just going to go up. And I need him on my team for the next 10 years because I've already put him in that category with the Navarro Bowmans and Patrick Willis's. He is that guy on defense. We've lost every defensive lineman we could. We've lost every defensive back we could. And he stayed at an elite play, and he's elevated everyone around him. And that's what you need on the defensive side of the ball.
I 100% agree. You can't argue against Fred Warner. Fred Warner does have 1 year left on his rookie contract, though, so I'm going to swing this in another direction. Trent Williams is priority number one for me this offseason. Yes, he is not living up to the all-pro type player that we thought we were getting or the 49ers thought that they were getting when they traded for Trent Williams. But if you look at all the other free agents, you can make arguments that there's a contingency plan or a solid alternative against all other pending free agents. I can make arguments against Kyle Juszczyk. I can make arguments against K'Wan Williams. I can make arguments against Jaquiski Tartt. I can't, however, make arguments against re-signing Trent Williams. He plays the second most important position on offense. Left tackles are so hard to come by. We were holding out hope for Justin Skule. Justin Skule, you can flush the possibility of him being a starting left tackle right down the toilet, which is why
I wouldn't do that yet because if we look at Trent Williams, look how he looked his first couple weeks, Nick. He looked really bad. He looked really bad his first couple weeks. So Justin Skule, there's 4 plays that I went back and watched. Justin Skule got beat. He went inside expecting for an outside chip. A lot of the times you get that outside chip. Trent Williams, when he got bashed for one of the games that he played really, really poorly, he did the same thing. The 49ers like to chip on the left side. I don't know why. They should be chipping on McGlinchey's side. But they like to chip on that left side. And Trent Williams came out and said, I thought I played great. Why? Because he expected someone to chip. So that's why he goes inside because he has outside help. So I don't think Justin Skule is going to be an elite left tackle. But I would look at the free agent market because if you do save $20 million.
Well, that's what I've done. So I've done research on this, which is why I would re-sign Trent Williams. You have Villanueva of the Steelers, Alejandro Villanueva, the guy that played at Army or one of those schools. I think it was Army. The left tackle of the Steelers, he's set to hit the market. You have David Bakhtiari of the Packers. He's set to hit the market. Ronnie Stanley just got a huge contract extension. There's Russell Okung. He's another one that is playing somewhat. All these guys are set to hit the market, but the left tackle position is just so costly. You're going to have to invest in it either way. And these teams are all in the same boat where they need to protect their quarterbacks. They're not going to let them slip through the cracks. Trent Williams, you need to have that level of comfort to be able to have your quarterback drop back in the pocket, knowing that the protection could hold up. PFF-wise, and we have our doubts about PFF, he's still holding up well. I would re-sign Trent Williams because you need to have that stability at left tackle, and I just don't see there being any other viable options out there. And you're not going to invest in a left tackle in the first round of the 2021 draft. We already talked about the importance of finding a quarterback there or a corner. So that's why, yes, Fred Warner's a no-brainer, but he has 1 year left on his contract. So out of all the free agents who are set to hit the market this year, I go Trent Williams.
Okay, so let me ask this question. Where do you think, how many years would you re-sign him to?
Just 2 or 3, nothing too long. And again, Prague is great at doing the contract layouts where you get certain outs. I would go somewhere in the ballpark of, let's say, 3 years, but it really 2 years based on guaranteed money. 3 years, $50 million or so. So what's that? It's about 17, a little less than 17 per season. That might even be a little high. You might be able to pull it off for like 3 years, 45 mil with 28 guaranteed, somewhere in that ballpark. He's making around 13 million this season. I would go maybe slightly above that. And if you can get him for cheaper, great. Premium position, you pay a premium price.
Well, would you rather sign David Bakhtiari, who's 4 years younger than him? I mean, for me, Trent Williams is already 33 years old, and I believe he's going to be 34 during the next beginning of the next season. That's kind of getting up there in age. So for me, giving someone a 3-year deal, I might just give you a 1 year deal.
They might, and maybe they can franchise tag him. There's many ways the 49ers could work around this. Regardless of the contract status, I think he's priority number one to bring back next year because you need to have that stability at left tackle. David Bakhtiari, I don't see him leaving the Packers, although they had a solid performance from their left tackle, Billy Turner. I think you're right on that. He looked good playing left tackle, so we'll see. But I prefer Trent Williams. Let's wrap things up. We're an hour and 17 minutes of elite 49ers content. It's past my bedtime here, staying on the pod this long. I'm just messing around. It's 7:37 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as it's getting pitch black at 5 p.m. nowadays. Me and my girlfriend have been going to bed at like 8:45, 9 o'clock, like we're a bunch of grandparents. So it's definitely time to wrap things up. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 17 of the Faithful Fanatic. Marco, wrap things up with your final thought.
And before we get going, I want to shout out to all the listeners. I see everyone who's listening out of the country. I respect all you guys. Appreciate every single one of you guys. And to everyone in the U.S. representing us as well. Hey, the Faithful appreciate you guys. Just know that.
And Marco and I appreciate all of our listeners. We go back and forth with you guys on Twitter. At the end of the day, it's all love. Sports are there to debate. No one take anything we say personally. We live for this kind of stuff. This concludes episode 17 of the Faithful Fanatic. It could be 18, could be 19. I'm guessing it's 17. It's been a pleasure to be able to do this. We're excited to see our numbers going up, having more people participate, more people to interact with. Thank you guys for tuning in.